It's time for the Volquest Mailbag Podcast, answering your questions from the General's quarters every week, right here on Volquest.
Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com Mailbag Podcast, presented by our good friends at Smoky Mountain Organics, East Tennessee's most trusted health and wellness store, focusing on natural products and organic remedies to work on a variety of ailments that people are dealing with. You can check them out at one of their 4 locations, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, and their newest location in Knoxville. That's at Kingston Pike, right across from Trader Joe's. Check them out online at SmokyMountainOrganics.com. And again, if you go into the store, be sure and tell them that you heard about them on Volquest, and they're going to give you 15% off your total packet purchase. That's in a in-store purchase only. That's Smoky Mountain Organics. With Austin Price and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Glad to have you along with us on this mailbag edition. We'll get it cranked up and get going here with the questions. We'll start with Smoky Man 15. Long way to go, but how are you feeling about this team's overall performance thus far? They've certainly made games fun to watch again. Rob, what do you think about this team at the midway point?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how I would describe it. It's fun to watch. I mean, I guess I mentioned this in the Rocky Top Roundtable. AP turned to me in the press box during the third quarter. Is like, man, this is boring. After they'd racked up, almost 400 yards of offense in the first half and scored 38 points. AP was spoiled. But and I'm not being critical here. I'm just saying that you look at how this team's played these last 2 weeks, and it just I bet the coaches are kicking themselves over the Pittsburgh game, because the team that played these last 2 weeks, I think wins that one. I don't know about going away, but pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I think, Austin, when you look at this team through the first half of the season, the first thing that jumps out to me is just they've gotten better. I mean, it's a team that's improved in really every facet, every position of on the field. I mean, you can't. Maybe special teams has taken a bit of a slide, but other than that, across the board by position, this is a team that's better than they were 3 weeks ago.
Oh, 100%. I mean, they just continue to get better week by week. Confidence breeds confidence, and the more they get just a little bit more sure of themselves, they just continue to kind of grow in that direction with everything they do. And so, more perfect, better example than a guy like Brandon Turnage, who was third on the depth chart, forced into action last week in the league game, and then was the SEC Defensive Player of the Week. Now, granted, Brandon did sign with Alabama coming out of high school, so he's got talent, but still, I mean, he told us on the locker room, he had never played a snap of nickel before in his life, and went out there and performed unbelievably well.
Yeah, and Josh Heupel, Winston and Volquest, was still offering praise for Turnage's performance. Also gave a shout out to Theo Jackson for helping him get ready as well, but had nothing but praise for what Brandon Turnage got done for Tennessee. Not just the way he played, but the way he communicated with his teammates and checks and different things like that. Continued praise for Turnage will be. I guess interesting, probably use that word too much, but interesting to see how much they rotate with him. Does he play this week? What do they do? How do they handle a rotation in the back end of this defense against an Ole Miss offense that's going to go really, really fast, obviously. All right, TN Bowl, go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you think it makes them look at playing dime a little bit more? Not as a base defense, but just, Ole Miss is going to spread you out. You think it maybe makes that a little more attractive? Or is that just too easy to take advantage of if Ole Miss wants to get big?
Well, I just think that I don't know about Ole Miss getting big. I just think Ole Miss likes to run the ball, and we've seen what Tennessee in this offense, which obviously is a lot similar to Ole Miss. We've seen what Tennessee's done against 3-man fronts, running the football. Bowling Green and Missouri, obviously. Now we know Missouri's really bad, but Cade Mays talked about on Tennessee Prime 2 weeks ago about how easy it is to block a 3-man front. So I don't know how much time you can roll there. I wonder how they handle the safety spot, Austin, because I would imagine Lane Kiffin's probably going to try to attack the safeties. He would probably try to attack Jalen McCullough, test his speed and cover a lot of ground. Does that change how Tennessee plays some personnel back there? We've not seen them play dime really all year, maybe 2 or 3 snaps, but not many. So I don't even see a wholesale change there unless they just can't defend space, with the linebackers in this scheme. So that's part of the stress that Ole Miss certainly puts on you, and how Tim Banks attacks it. We don't know at this point.
Well, they did play a couple of snaps of dime at Missouri. I do think you're right, though. I think what it does is it gives you the availability to, hey, Jalen McCullough needs a break on this series. Theo, we're going to slide you back to safety, and Brandon, you're going to come in and run nickel, or vice versa, or whatever. So, I do think it gives you more flexibility. Again, Willie's big on trust, and sounds like to me that Brandon Turnage has earned that trust after his performance last week. And, I would expect to see him more going forward. How much more? I think it depends on the health and how everybody's playing. But I do think that the Oxford native would sure love to play this weekend against his hometown team.
Yeah, no doubt. To your point, though, Rob, if Tennessee can get them in third and long, I think you would see dime more this week than you would see in previous weeks, just because of everything that Ole Miss does in the passing game. So if you can get, really ahead of the sticks, or get Ole Miss behind the sticks, then I think you would see them play more dime than you've seen to this point in the season. TN Bowles wants to know, best case scenario, we split the next 4. Worst case scenario, you drop 4 in a row. Do you think this team has the right chemistry to weather a 4-game slide?
I think it does, but I just have a hard time believing that they're going to go from the way they played the last 2 weeks. Again, I get it. South Carolina's not very good. Missouri's not very good, but Tennessee couldn't have done that against a team like South Carolina or Missouri the last few years, as far as beat them the way they beat them. It's hard for me to believe they're going to lose 4 in a row. I'm not saying they're going to go 2-2 either. They may just go 1-3. But, I have a feeling they'll win at least one of those 4. But I think they could weather the storm, and, the 3 of us could beat South Alabama and Vanderbilt.
It's about staying healthy and getting healthy, Rob. They're going to have a hard time getting through the next 4. And obviously Alabama and Georgia seem, unlikely. Certainly Georgia. I think getting through these 4, though, they're going to have to get healthy from where they were a week ago and stay healthy at some critical spots. And that starts with Tyon Evans.
Yeah. I can't say anything, but I agree. And I think 2-2 is realistic personally. You look at, I know Las Vegas isn't always right, but they certainly see this one as a pretty even matchup this week. And frankly, I know Kentucky is playing great. I don't see that as a bad matchup at all for Tennessee. We're getting ahead of ourselves. It's, several weeks down the road, but I think Tennessee can score 28 to 35 points on them, and I don't know that Kentucky's getting 30.
Yeah, especially with the fact that Tennessee gets them coming out of their bye. Tennessee gets that off week before, and
to Hubbard's point about being healthy should be big.
I just keep going back to Tennessee's worst decade in modern football, and Tennessee's 7-3 against Kentucky.
All right. As Rob said, we won't get too far ahead of ourselves. Wrigleyville Vol wants to know, all the talk this week is on offenses, and rightfully so, but how important is that Tennessee comes in with the better defense on paper? Seems like this game could come down to a couple of timely stops. I don't think there's any question this game is going to come down to a couple of timely stops. Who gets enough stops is the bottom line question. Tennessee is better defensively. How much better offensively is Ole Miss than Tennessee? I don't know. I think that's, Rob, while Vegas has got this as an even matchup, right?
I think Tennessee clearly has a better defense, but I think Ole Miss is so good on offense that it may not matter. Arkansas is pretty decent, and they just hung half 100 on them
in 3 quarters.
Yeah, I don't think having the better defense than Ole Miss. The defenses aren't playing against each other, so it doesn't matter. And I think defensively, I think you've made the best point I've heard this week is when you do get them in 3rd and long, you got to get off the field. You've got to take advantage of those situations.
Which means you also have to win on 4th down, because they're going to go for it on 4th down from anywhere on the field at any point in time, because Lane Kiffin, I don't think, believes very much in his defense. So why not go for it? I don't think Lane Kiffin's playing the field position game to try to flip the field, Austin, because I don't think he feels like his defense can flip the field very well. Now, last week was their worst week defensively by far. than in previous weeks. But this is a defense that certainly is struggling and is one that is frustrating the head coach. I don't think there's any doubt about that one.
Well, and we'll see what kind of changes they come in with. I mean, Durkin's kind of let on like, well, we are kind of who we are. We're going to run what we've run because that's all we got. But something tells me they'll throw some type of wrinkle at Tennessee this week.
I bet Lane's been on the phone with Monty.
Yeah, he's going to bring up the Tampa too. I don't know. I just feel like that ultimately this will come down to turnovers. Ole Miss has not turned it over as far as interceptions to this point. Which tells me he's kind of due. And again, I go back to the crowd. Neyland, the sound kind of just sits down in there more so than it even does at Bryant Denny. I think if the crowd's into this, especially early, if Tennessee can get off to a good start offensively, defensively, they may be able to force him into something, that kind of gets Tennessee going the other direction.
All right, to recruiting we go. And Vol Rick wants to know, have you heard how LJ Dixon felt about the game last Saturday, and do you think Tennessee has a legitimate shot to get him? Austin?
He was here on his own accord. I don't think Tennessee is actively really pursuing Lynn J. Dixon that hard. I think they've taken a look at it, but everybody just because he's was committed here before and because he decided to come over on his own has kind of lumped this thing in there. I'm not sure Tennessee's super interested in Lynn J. at this point.
J. Strew H2 wants to know, Rob, do you think turnover margin or penalties is the most important factor in the game this week?
Turnovers, always. It's the most important thing in the sport of football.
That's the whole reason Arkansas lost, in my opinion. I mean, they turned away 2 possessions that, and Ole Miss didn't turn those possessions over. So they didn't turn over anything. So I think any coach would tell you that. Don't you think, Hubbard? I mean, you've been around a lot of coaches. I mean, turnover. It's all about turnovers are the biggest stat in the sport. Yeah. Now, I mean, Tennessee doesn't need to come. I mean, if Tennessee comes out and has double-digit penalties, then that's going to be a bad thing. But you can overcome penalties. You can't overcome not having the football, particularly in a game where you think you've got to score quite a bit. Pine Mountain Vol, can you go over your best guess on the health of the players that didn't play last week? Any rumblings on anybody not playing this week? It seems like every game we have a surprise player out. Josh Heupel, Austin, said he expects guys back. Do we expect guys back?
Yeah, I think Cooper is going to be healthy enough to go. Can he make it through the whole game? We'll see. Jabari Small, he could have played last week, but why play him if you don't have to, especially once Tennessee got to that good start. I think that they were going to just let him watch from the sidelines, have another week of rest, and, not have to take a pounding on that shoulder. Outside of those guys, I mean, I think Tennessee should be, about as healthy as they have been. Again, Theo could have played last week, same as Jabari. Once they got off the start, once Turnage was playing the way he was playing, there was no point to play him.
Yep. The only guy that, and I just think it's because he's so important, I want to make sure that Tyon Evans is moving around and looking the way he's supposed to look in pregame warmups. I don't have any reason to believe that he's not, but I think when you talk about key guys this week, when you talk about key guys on this team, to me, that's but because you're going to have to run the football and you should be able to run the football effectively. I think Tyon Evans is as key as anybody, maybe the most important offensive player for Tennessee on Saturday, but because you need to be able to run the ball, and he's their best running back. No offense to Jabari Small, but I think he's by far the best running back. So that's the one. I mean, that's the one guy, and I know Josh Heupel said everybody will be ready to go. I'm sure that's what he will indicate on tomorrow or later today when he meets the media as well. What can you tell pre-War Room on recruits that will attend this game? Growing list, Austin.
Yeah, it is. They're going to have as many kids as they can here. Here's the deal. There's no official visits this weekend. It's all unofficials. And so you've seen that list, with Walter Nolan and, several of the 23, some of the 22 commits, Taven Jackson going to be here, for me, I'm just kind of saying who straggles in here come Saturday, who wakes up and decides, I'm going to go to Tennessee, today, that's kind of, where I'm where I'm kind of watching. I think there's a chance that Rodney Harrison's kid comes back up this weekend. I don't think Caleb Webb's going to come back up, but I think Tennessee's positioned themselves well there for the kid from McEachern. And then we'll see a lot of 23s though, 23s, 24s. Obviously, the 2 5-star top quarterbacks, Nicholas, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, the kid from California, and then the 24, going to be here as well.
Yeah,
I mean, how big is it that the California kids coming on the unofficial? That seems pretty significant to me.
I think it's significant. I mean, he's got enough interest in Tennessee. They've done a nice job with him for him to come out here, Rob, and come out here on his own dime.
You don't see that a lot, but like Austin said, who gets up and says, "Hey, I want to get there," and who wakes up and goes, "You know what? I'll watch it on TV." That's the thing with unofficial visitors.
I think the Herrings are coming back this weekend.
Did you say the Taylor kid from West Tennessee's coming?
Yeah, Marquez Taylor's coming in this weekend. Aiden Bussell, kids from Powell. It's going to be a lot of kids here.
Yeah, and of course Walter Nolan, as you mentioned, supposed to be in the house as well. Birdie Man, Texas. In talking with recruits, does the recent program success and development dampen recruits' concern over the pending investigation? What's Tennessee's messaging to kids about the investigation? It's getting asked. Kids and parents are asking that question.
They are. What's the messaging? Just don't pay attention to all that stuff. Look at NCAA's not ruled on any of these other schools. I mean, like Tennessee's not close to having a ruling on it. I don't believe unless they self-impose. And at this point, Hubs, I just don't expect them to self-impose anything. Why would you?
Yeah, we've talked about that plenty. I mean, does it make sense to do that? What's the advantage for doing that versus letting it play out and drag itself out, over a longer period of time to where you end up with potentially less of a penalty? And again, I just think you have to you do your best you can to settle everybody's concerns without knowing a full, complete answer as to what it's going to end up being. He also wanted to know what would Mark Stoops leaving do to the Wade twins' commitments if Stoops were to leave. His name's obviously going to surface, I think, with some jobs at the end of this year.
I think they would definitely look around. I think there's also a chance they would likely stay at Kentucky, but I do think that they would at least, answer phone calls and take a look. But again, when's he leaving?
Right. What's everybody's numbers look like at that point? How many schools would say, "Yeah, we're definitely taking both of you," versus, "Yeah, we'll take one."
Like, I don't think Florida State's making a change. I think they're not going to knee jerk this just because they had such a terrible start to the year. I think they're going to financially they're kind of stuck, and I think that they're going to play the long game at least for another year, anyways. If that is the long game.
I don't know if you're Mark Stoops, Rob, why you would leap.
Not for Florida State, I don't think right now. I mean, we've heard stories from people that have worked at Florida State about the facilities, the commitment to the program, kind of how, it's not what a lot of people from the outside look at it. It's not some sleeping giant like a lot of people seem to think. I mean, it's a place with some infrastructure problems. Whereas Kentucky, I mean, they may kind of be down the totem pole a little bit, the SEC, but that's a place. I mean, you can see the commitment. I mean, what's that stadium look like compared to what it looked like 10 years ago, or the luxury press box area? I mean, they're pouring some money into that program, and Stoops is getting paid.
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
His alma mater is Iowa, and the long thought in the coaching realm has always been that he would try to go back there. But the Rod Delmonico of college football, at Iowa, he continues to, have bad year, really good year. And then get an extension, and it goes back to bad year, and then really good year. So I'm not sure that, Iowa's going to make a move at this point. Obviously, they're in the top 5, so I don't see that coming about this year. And as we just talked about, I mean, Kentucky's a good job. You play Mississippi State in the West every year. Tennessee plays Alabama. They schedule cupcake games, and then you have state, and then unless you're playing an Alabama, Auburn, or LSU or Texas A&M as your other Western Division opponent, I mean, it's not hard to rack up a few wins.
Yep, and they've done a good job of scheduling that thing for bowls, to get bowl eligible with their non-conference scheduling, and then they've done a good job in the SEC East, taking advantage of kind of where the East has been, and it's a pretty good trade when you're playing Mississippi State versus playing an LSU every year or playing Alabama every year like Tennessee is, as you mentioned. All right, Go Vols 1997 wants to know any in-state O lineman for the 23 class you see Tennessee taking. What in-state prospects is Tennessee still evaluating? They're evaluating all in-state prospects. I mean, they're not stopping their evaluations of in-state prospects, 22, 23, or 24. As for the 23 linemen, doesn't that feel like for a lot of people out there, not just Tennessee, there's a lot more evaluating of those guys going on? I mean, how many of those guys are just slam dunk guys for everybody across the SEC?
I think Aiden Bussell, Joe Crocker are guys that I think Tennessee's probably a little bit further down the road with than, or even a Bryson Sanders, more so than, Lance Williams or, the kid at Maryville, Cal Grubb, or, Luke Brown. Brown's the name that, had so much, juice a year ago, and it just seems like there's nothing going on there with him.
E. Schaefer 92, Garland, Mohan, Willis, rank them in likelihood that they ended up as linebacker 4. Doesn't that feel like that's Willis is ahead of those two guys right now as potential 4th linebacker? And then what you took from
Heupel
on Monday. I mean, what did he say about him? He's traveled the last 2 weeks.
I don't think he's ready. I mean, I think there's a clear drop off there, but I think that it seems like that's the guy that they've at least taken on the road with them as the possibility.
Long term, it's going to be Mohan.
Yeah, and Mohan's playing on special teams, so he's been on the road with them as well. So it's not like he's not traveled and they've taken Aaron Willis and they've left, Mohan and Garland at home. So that's not been the case. It's just, Heupel was specifically asked about Willis and where he was as potential 4th linebacker. And he did acknowledge he was traveling. So maybe he would be the 4th. I don't think Tennessee really wants to think about that scenario at this point. They want to roll with kind of where they are at the linebacker. They don't want any more injuries at that position. D. Hale, how is defensive recruiting so far? Seems to me that with the fast offense, more defensive players are needed to stay fresh. Maybe you could use that to get more guys here. Defensive recruiting.
The defensive recruiting, they're taking more of the long approach. Most of the guys that are coming in right now are defensive guys. I mean, Caleb Webb last week, there's not a whole lot else going on offense. I'm not saying Tennessee wouldn't take another tackle if, we get later in the process and they have somebody, leave the program early and, they can replace them because I do think they would. I could see Tennessee taking a second running back. Jerry Mack talked about that when he met with the media a week or two ago. But it just right now, it's pretty much Caleb Webb. I don't think there's anybody that's just like zeroed in on the offensive side. So defensively, that's most of the kids that are coming in. They offer, Christian Harrison, on Thursday or on Wednesday. They continue to recruit Jordan Thomas, who I think is probably your next commit. If I was a betting man, just based off his visit last weekend and how everything went, and then Tennessee's going to continue to swing at Davison Igbinosun. So you have when you say you say it a lot, you learn it.
Yeah, roll with conviction.
No, that wasn't conviction. I mean, like that was he told me, and I've just been practicing.
I know, but you said it with conviction. It makes
no, you're right. But it wasn't like I was guessing though.
I didn't say you did. I said you said it with confidence and conviction.
Anyway, so most of the kids that are coming in are going to be defensive guys. They're just taking more of a long-term approach. Like with the offensive guys, they had most of their hay in the barn back in June. The defensive guys wanted to see how the season played out, what they need, kind of go from there.
All right. Next question is a three-parter. Are Tyler Barron's decreased snaps due to injury, maintenance, or have Young and Harrison earned more playing time? If the Vols are able to beat Ole Miss, will they be a top 25 team going into Bama next week? And lastly, as good as Heupel has been, do you think his end-of-half clock timeout management will have an impact in a close game? Start with Tyler Barron.
Well, he and Young don't play the same position, do they? Am I missing?
No, they play some. Yeah, they play some there. They play obviously at the same time, but they can both play off the edge. I think with Tyler, it's a little bit of injury, and I think it's a little bit of getting ready every week. I think they were cautious with him last week and played him, sparingly in that game after Byron Young got banged up. But I would expect him to get more snaps this week. But he's been banged up, for whatever reason, on and off since the preseason. Missed some practice time here and there and some things like that. So, 100% healthy Tyler Barron is what Rodney Garner would like to see every day on the practice field. Obviously not just being available on Saturday, but being full go every day on the practice field. Tennessee going to be ranked if they beat Ole Miss?
I mean, if you go by the others receiving votes this week, they would have been I think 35th or 36th. That's kind of a big jump when you think.
Yeah, I would be a little bit surprised. Unless
I wouldn't know.
If you blew them out, whatever, depends on how the game goes. But I would be a little surprised if you made that big of a jump. Depends on what people do ahead of you who are ranked and all that stuff as well. Time management, big deal, not a big deal with Heupel and you.
I mean, Hubbard, you went back and looked at the Florida stuff, didn't you? I mean, I don't think that's as bad as a lot of fans seem to think, because Heupel was content to run out the clock until Jabari Small kind of popped that one and, got him out around, not to midfield, but close to midfield. And then, I know fans were griping about that, but he was fine with going into the locker room until, that play happened. I don't know, maybe 30 seconds left or so.
And I think the end of last week, the clock management got a little messed up there because Hooker should have thrown the ball away instead of scramble. I mean, he got out of bounds to stop the clock, so he didn't have to use a timeout. But if he throws the ball away and doesn't scramble around, you probably have a chance to run another play or two there. I think with 6 seconds to go at the end or whatever it was when they kicked the field goal, I just don't think they were in a position. They were close enough. They didn't have to get closer to make it a more makeable field goal. And I just don't think they were going to take a chance there with 6 seconds. You want to run it to the end zone because it doesn't do you any good to make 5 yards closer on a 28-yard field goal attempt. So I think because they didn't feel like they could get to the end zone there, they would have been able to take a shot at the end zone had Hooker thrown the ball away and not scrambled around and cost them a few seconds there. Can't get right. 84-02 coming into the season. A lot of people felt like the Pittsburgh game would be the most important game, be a good measuring stick of where we are. Since the QB change has changed how we look, is this Ole Miss game the new measuring stick? Are we a little too hyped? Each week stands on its own merit, right? You're only as good as you were that week.
I mean, Ole Miss is ranked number 12 in the country, and had a lot of preseason hype. If Tennessee loses this game, I don't think it says anything. I wonder what the line on this game was back in August. Odds makers put those preseason lines out.
I'd say it was Ole Miss heavy.
I'd say it was maybe. I bet it was double digits. I don't know if it was 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I just don't think you can put that much heat on, in game number 7 of Josh Heupel's career against a team that everybody thought was going to be, a top 15 team this year.
All right. Hey, people are going to do some quick hitting recruiting questions here. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Have Tennessee made any headway with in-state kids who are committed elsewhere?
To this point, no.
All right. Pretty big deal getting 2024 quarterback Jaden Davis on campus this weekend. What are your thoughts there, AP?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Anytime you can get a younger quarterback on your campus, especially one that's rated high, I think it's a big deal. And, so, yeah, you got 2 big-time quarterbacks, one for 23, one for 24 in town. And, Davis has got a lot of upside.
Is DeMario Tolan someone the staff has continued to recruit since he's committed to LSU over the summer, and Orgeron is a dead man walking? Seems like Vols could get back in there perhaps. Who are some of the other recruits committed to other schools Tennessee might circle back around on?
I've not heard DeMario Tolan's name at all. So if they are, then I've not heard about it. There's a few kids Tennessee's, kind of laying in wait on. I think they want to try to remain under the radar on, though.
Yeah, and again, I mean, the kid's committed somewhere right now. I mean, he probably doesn't want a whole lot of openness. If he's just kind of sort of listening, but not all in and not ready to go public with any kind of decommitment and all those kinds of stuff. There's probably some of that going on, but we'll see if Tennessee continues to have success, if some of that stuff pops up and gets a little more public and gets a little more out there at this point. I mean, the bottom line is, I think Rob said this best in the podcast, you want to continue to have those relationships. So you got to handle, and if you've handled it right when they've committed elsewhere, then it opens up the door where they will take your phone call, perhaps, if you can have success. So we'll see if people start picking up the phone more here over the course of the next month. Yeah,
you're exactly right. I mean, okay, let me preface this with Tennessee's never talked to Ty Simpson ever, okay? I'm putting that out there on the front. But, how Tennessee handled the Ty Simpson thing, whereas, Josh called, had a nice talk with him. Whereas when Clemson called, they were furious about how he had wasted their time and it just burnt that thing to the ground. It all depends on how you handle things. Again, Ty's a moot point. He's committed to Alabama. I'm just saying how you handle it. I'm using that as the example. Like Clemson couldn't go back in on Ty Simpson, I don't think, right now. So like how Tennessee handled themselves with other guys, when they committed elsewhere could be a big deal, if those players were to take a look at Tennessee or answer phone calls or reply to texts or heck, even call or text Tennessee, over the next, 3 to 4 weeks.
I don't know what you got out of that, but I feel like Ty Simpson's coming to Tennessee.
No. I was just using him as the example because of how Clemson, how Clemson called and went bananas on him. The point is, Josh just said thanks for talking to me.
Right, and the point is, not everybody handles it the same way.
Yeah,
and if you handle it the right way, sometimes it can allow you to circle back around. I think you referenced Aubrey Solomon as that point several weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago or so, Rob, when this question came up as well. I mean, if you handle it the right way, Cade Mays was probably the better example, Rob, that you used talking about how Jeremy Pruitt didn't burn that bridge, and that allowed him to circle back around as a transfer and come here. All right, last question. Corey Tinval, my boy, wants to know, Twisters, Don Jose's? Depends on what you're in the mood to eat. Okay, ice cream, you're going to Twisters. Don Jose, I'm getting the chicken and rice dish with some chips and queso. But if I need a hamburger, I'm going to the Chow Hall. Those are my people there.
Yes,
all right?
Chow Hall.
So there you go.
Hall.
Now on to his serious question as we head out the door. What do you feel this team's ceiling is, and what are they really capable of doing as you go in the back half of this season? What's realistic for this team? And I don't know that he means he probably means record. I don't know that we can forecast record. But what do you think? I mean, can this team continue to be a 40-point game team? How much better can they get, I guess, is what I'm asking moving forward.
I feel like their ceiling and reality is 8-4. I mean, I think they can easily get there. I think that's also their ceiling. I don't see them getting past 8-4. But the most realistic thing is probably 7-5. But I do think 8-4 is still reality, because Tennessee, again, if they can win this weekend, they're 7-3 in their worst decade of football against Kentucky. So again, that's a game that Tennessee definitely can go up to Lexington and get a win.
And I've already referenced it once in this podcast, and I don't want to keep harping on it. But man, they beat Pittsburgh, and how excited is this fan? I mean, 9-3 would be a legit possibility, and 8-4 might, 7-5 would be your floor. So, I mean, they've not done anything to get better since, you expect most teams to do that, but they have gotten dramatically better since the start of the season. So I think 40 points, I think they can average 40 points for the year.
Here's where I am on this deal is, like, no one in the world after Mississippi State beat Texas A&M thought Texas A&M was going to turn around and beat Alabama. I'm not saying Tennessee's beating Alabama or Georgia, but I don't think you can just write the games off and go, there's no chance. I mean, again, more parity now than ever, and last week proved it.
Yep, it's a crazy college football season. For Tennessee to have a chance for their ceiling to go up or their ceiling to be where you guys think it is, they've got to stay healthy and they've got to continue to play turnover free and reduction of penalties.
How remarkable is that? 3 SEC games, no turnovers.
Yes.
That's right, isn't it?
Yep, and that's a crazy stat for sure. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Mailbag Podcast presented by Smoky Mountain Organics. For Rob Lewis and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.
You've been listening to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast every week right here on Volquest.